A very good evening to all of you. I, Dr. Bharti Singh, Area Chair, Economics and General Management, welcome you all to this roundtable of strategy. This is the fourth roundtable in the series of roundtables that we had at IMT CDL. As we know, the topic today is how corporates manage risk and opportunity. Strategically, what approaches are adopted by them in order to navigate through the risk or to face the challenging situations. As we know, we are all in a set of turbulent times. There is change in the economic scenario, the business landscape changes quite often, the regulatory frameworks tend to change in a globalized scenario. When you're integrated with the world economy, we know that each organization has to keep a tab of the changes that take place and align the strategies in terms of the changes in that industry which is in which they are operating. So today with us we have three distinguished experts from different industries. We have with us Mr. Shyam Lal Kapil. He's from the NHPC Limited. He's the executive director with over about 35 years of experience. He has worked in different positions in his organization. He has a proven track record of coming out with turnaround strategies for the stressed projects. We also have with us Mr. Karna Ghosh. He is from the auto components industry. As of now, he is working with the Uno Minda Group. He is the group CIO, and he also has experience of about 3 decades in this industry. Our another distinguished guest is Mr. Lalit Rajpal. So he is from the BFSI sector, working in a renowned bank. He is a techno-functional leader and analyst in terms of business analytics. So he'll be also giving us fair idea in terms of how strategies can be framed for the organization. We know that whenever the risk assessment has to be done, this has to be in context of the different risks that are faced in that specific industry. So I would request Mr. Shamlal to just delve upon the various risks identification mechanics that are taken, and so also the competitive landscape in which it is operating.
Thank you, madam. Good afternoon to all. As we know that hydropower, basically it is a renewable power. In India, almost we have around 145 gigawatt hydropower potential, and almost still we have tapped only 45 gigawatt. So 100 gigawatt still available, and now government already declared that previously there was only up to 25 it was supposed to be renewable as hydro, but now hydro almost any size of the project is renewable energy. So that big advantage NHPC has. Another thing that in NHPC it has developed almost expertise in all areas. Like in NHPC, particularly in hydropower projects, we have the problem of geological surprises. Whichever we encounter, we have some environmental issues, some earthquake related to seismological issues also. So, understanding these problems, and then you have the marketing also, plus how you develop the capability for development of hydropower. All those things, NHPC has developed expertise in all areas, and such expertise is not generally available with other hydropower companies which NHPC has. So this is one of the strength. Another thing that there are many risks associated with the projects. So we have framed a very detailed uh, system for identification of risk. So in every project, we have identified a person who is a risk coordinator. They will identify the risk. So wherever we have our projects, we have identified the risk coordinators, and these risk coordinators, they will identify the risk. We have a defined portal, and all those risks, they will uh, uh, provide the input in that portal. At our corporate office level also, then we have the risk coordinators, and at each division, and then we have the chief risk officer also. I was also working as chief risk officer. And then every 3 years, every 3 months, the all the risk, whatever we have identified, the projects, they will put into the system. Then uh, the uh, the risk coordinators at our corporate office, they will analyze those risks, and then there are different committees: risk assessment committee and risk management committee. So this risk assessment committee, they will assess all the risk, and we conduct the committee every 3 months, and then we will put all these details to the further risk management committee, which is headed by our some members from our board. And then all these details, then we have to submit to the board. Then another thing, we have to submit it to the audit committee also. And then whatever decision has to be taken, it has to be communicated immediately. So this is how we are doing it. And like whenever we see there is any problem, so we do try to handle those situations. Like I will give you one example, that we had a serious problem in one of our project in Arunachal Pradesh. This project is around 2000 megawatt project, Suhansi Lower project. And then there was a problem that some people, they were giving that some seismological issues were there. So what we did, that we immediately set up some seismic network, and then NHPC decided that these seismic equipments will be installed at all project, and we made a real-time seismic data center at our corporate office, and now all our projects are connected. So whenever we have any problem related to this, so we have immediate answer to that. So that we have identified. Recently there was a issue with NTPC project in they have a project in Tapovan Vishnugad near this Joshimath, and there was some big landslides. So that time there was a very big issue against the hydropower projects, that this landslide, hydropower projects, they create landslides. So then we immediately thought that we can also have such problems in our projects. So what we did, uh, we what we took the big project, 9 projects, and we made a research project with IIRS, Indian Institute of Remote Sensing, Dehradun. And then we have identified what are the landslides which were present at the site before construction of the project, and then after commissioning of the project, and what is the present status. And then a detailed report was prepared immediately within 5 6 months, and then we submitted this report to the power ministry. And this report was the main findings was that hydropower projects, they do not create any landslide, even they help in stabilizing the landslides. So then our minister was also very happy about this report, and he himself took a presentation on this, and then he appreciated the efforts of NHPC, that it was a proactive efforts by NHPC. So these are the main things. Whenever we think that there are some issues, and as a business, NHPC is in a very uh, safe place. We have a lot of business. There is no issue of any business. Even now we are getting very big business from this pump storage projects. Now government is insisting a lot that pump storage projects have to be developed. So these pump storage projects are also like similar to hydropower projects, only they have some different kind of turbines in that.
So very
So
nicely explained by Mr. Kapil that it is on the fly that a organization has to assess the risk. Like he talked about the Arunachal Pradesh project or the project in Tapovan. So when the situations turn worse, how to come back with a plan in order to face or mitigate those risks or any kind of concerns which are faced by the organization. So it can be from any area, any arena, can be some external forces which come out with certain obstacles or barriers in the operations of an organization. As you talked about, there was a seismic effect in the Arunachal Pradesh. Similarly, if you look at the business competitive landscape for the auto components industry, I think Parna would be able to throw some light in terms of he's from the private sector organization and Mr. Shyam Lal is from the public sector organization. This is whether it's the private sector or whether it's the public sector, risk can be faced by any of the organizations. Is how flexible the institution or the organization is in terms of mitigating, identifying those risks as well. So, if you take the micro perspective and the macro perspective, I would request now Mr. Parna to share his observations on this.
First of all, thank you, Dr. Singh, and thank you all other fellow panelists. Thanks for also inviting me into this IMT CDL campus in Ghaziabad. And nice to meet you all, whoever is joining on the other side of the system. So before I jump into the question, first I'll like to talk about my organization just for 30 seconds. So Unominda Group is 1.8 billion turnover currently in the last financial year we clocked, and we have 30,000 employees, 73 plants globally, 400 patents we have filed so far and 400 design registrations. So we have 30 engineering and R&D centers across the globe. We have three advanced technology and advanced engineering centers in and around India and in Germany. We have 20 joint venture partners across the globe and top 200 in the BSE and NSE listing of all the companies. So just to share a brief about the organization, uh, let me jump to the question directly on the competitive landscape and how we manage the risks in terms of auto components as a group or as an industry. I will speak instead of talking about the group only. So so if we get directly into the Porter's five forces model, that is what how to analyze your five quadrants of your environment or business. So first comes is industry rivalry or industry competition. So say for an example, if you see the auto ancillary industry as a whole, we have around 850 total companies across India, and in India we have around 50 plus OEMs, so which we cater to. Out of these 850, hundreds are only there who are tier 1. So when I say tier 1, tier 1s are directly supplying to the OEMs, and then tier 1s get supplies from tier 2, tier 3, and so on and so forth. So we fall under tier 1, and then in that scenario we have 100 competitors, you can say, or 99 competitors who are competing with us in the same landscape. But actually they are not 100. So in our segment we have hardly 5, 6, or 8 maximum competition who are actually competing directly with us and supplying materials and services to the OEMs. So say for an example, I give some of the examples like we have our two-wheeler switch where we are number one in the Indian context and we have 65% market share. So we cater to kind of a monopoly situation in this scenario. But there are product lines like example lights, four-wheeler lights or two-wheeler lights. So where we are three or four or some cases two also. So there we have some cases we have duopoly, some cases we have oligopoly kind of competition in terms of the landscape. Now, the issue is when this rivalry is there, how to make sure that you are contextual, you are relevant, and OEM's best preference in terms of supplies to the OEMs themselves. So, basically, it depends on how you are innovating on your technologies, your supply base, your manufacturing base, your employee strength, and also your manufacturing capability and distribution capability across the region. So this is how we are, as a strategy of the organization, we try to look at the segmentation where we play, and then we decide how to play and then where to play. So this is how we basically talk about the industrial, competition. The second comes threat for new entrants. So nowadays, as you know, this electric vehicles and the new generation vehicles are coming up, and a lot of new startups are coming up in play, and they are trying to take up the market of the existing large players. In case of tier one, I can talk to you in this respect that even in this area, we have a very good strategy how to be relevant with respect to auto ancillary business with respect to electric vehicles, or now these new alternative fuels are coming up like hydrogen and other things. So maybe in future solar is also coming up. So all these segments of businesses, how to become relevant and how to spread everywhere. So one example I'll give you, we are mainly playing in the safety and comfort systems. So when I say safety and comfort, so whether you go for electric or any other alternate fuel vehicles, apart from the IC engines, so you will be definitely having this threat for getting outclassed or something like that. But we are in those segments generally where there is no disruption happening. Another is the functional parts. So functional parts are going to be there. Then the wheels, we are very strong in the alloy wheels. We are again number one in this country, around 75% market share in that segment. So these are the areas which we have selected very very categorically, and we are trying to now diversify or increase the portfolio with respect to synergistic part or adjacent parts. So in this scenario, I think we are again very very relevant in terms of the landscape which we are playing into. Then the third point comes is the bargaining power of suppliers. Fortunately, since we are tier one and we have kind of a duopoly or monopoly in many of the product lines, so the bargaining power of suppliers, especially for bought out parts and components, is extremely low. But in case of the raw materials, yes, there is a lot of bargaining power. Say for an example, copper or aluminium or steel, because there are less number of suppliers in the market, and then you have some kind of market the rates increase or dollar price increase or some other aspects are coming up, the geopolitical issue what Dr. Singh was talking about in the beginning. So I think this also tends to a lot of threat in terms of increasing of the raw material prices. So there we need to have a strategy for long-term hedging, for in terms of dollar hedging, or sometimes long-term contract signing. So these kind of activities we are doing for the supplier part. And I'll try to quickly finish the two other parts. One is the threat of substitution. So as I told you already, most of our products and technologies and services are pertaining towards relevance in terms of future growth or future disruptions in the market, because whether it is electric vehicle, whether it is hydrogen powered vehicle, or even solar vehicles are coming up, connected cars, we are very much there. We have an advanced engineering center in Pune, which is around 500 people are working there, and there we are basically developing for PACE technology. I don't know how many of you know about PACE. PACE is basically personalization, autonomous, connected, and electrification. So these are the four dimensions of automotive disruption which is happening in the industry. So there we are working very very heavily on electric cars, on battery management system, on mobile charging system, and many other stuff, motors, even the motors for the cars, controllers, and various other aspects, in terms of the technology. And last but not the least, bargaining power of buyers. Now, this is one of the tricky areas because we are dealing with the OEMs. And when I talk about OEMs, OEMs are nothing but the big players like Maruti Suzuki, Tata Motors, Mahindras, and every Toyota and every big players in the market. So they have a lot of control on the pricing, on the product, on the technology, on the 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 volume also. Even the volumes are controlled by them. So there we are facing a lot of challenge, or I will say a lot of threats are there in terms of how to be relevant. Now there comes a very important part of customer relationship management. So we are a 65 years old company, started in 1958, and this 65 years of relationship with many OEMs for so many years, and they have tested our credentials and capability in the auto space. So hence customer relationship management plus your capabilities plus your manufacturing base, your people strength, your skills, your competencies, and last but not the least, systems and processes. So when I say systems and processes, it is about corporate governance, it is about certifications like ISOs, all types of ISO certifications are there in the market. Also credentials in the market. We are also supplying to all the the international OEMs also. So here, hence your credential becomes very important. So I think this all threat factors and the risk factors we are catering as a strategy, and we do every 2 years long-term planning. Generally, long-term planning talks about 5 years, but we do it for 2 years. Because why 2 years? Because the life cycle of a vehicle has come down drastically low. Earlier, an ambassador car used to run for 20 years or 15 years. Now, the cars are on the roads for 2 years, 3 years, and people change very fast. So that's why we have 2 years of strategy, and every 2 years we, whatever I have talked to so far as for the Porter's 5 forces, we try to look at all the factors and design our strategy and our future with that respect. We are targeting for 35,000 crores maybe by next 4 to 5 years, and we are definitely hopeful that we'll be achieving that through this analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Karna, for giving insights on the industry analysis as to what are the 5 forces that come into play in terms of the auto components industry. We know that we are living in an information age. So when we live in an information age, then data becomes quite important. So we have this expert with us, Mr. Lalit. So he'll be telling us how evidence-based strategy decision making can be undertaken by a firm. So how data can be used by organizations to identify and to assess the risk, and thereby create certain strategies to mitigate those risks. So I now request Mr. Rajpal to
First of all,
elaborate.
thank you for having me here. And I've heard Mr. Ghosh and Mr. Kapil. I think putting across all of these things, whether it is strategy or the competitive landscape, at the end of the day, you have to materialize that all of that through a plan, right? And your plan is all about where your revenues are going to flow and where are your costs doing. And for any organization to survive, whether it is financial, non-financial, it is important that we look at what are the key vectors, what are the key initiatives that are going to fuel our strategy. What we have put in by by considering all those forces that Mr. Ghosh talked about, and then come out with a sacrosanct plan which can really give you a thrust to kind of achieve that strategy in reality. So if I talk about the revenue, which is largely driven by sales, so it is important we identify, given that the BFSI industry is thriving on a lot of masses, and secondly, digital platforms or digitization is kind of very disruptive these days. So it is important for any organization to be more focused and pointed in terms of executing this strategy. Now, if there is in your plan, if there is a risk to your revenue, then it is important for all of those associated risks to be, first of all acknowledged, and then what are you doing about it? Now, I give you a small example. You might be having a million worth of your customers, or a million customers, right? But you cannot offer each and everything to all the customers, because there is a cost aspect as well, and plus it may not be so efficient for if you are offering a product to each and everyone. So hence it is important for you to when an organization collect leads to whom they can sell their product or service, which we generally call it prospective buyers or prospective users. So on those prospective buyers, we can actually see by looking at their attributes and geographical and many other factors, that how which are the set of customers which we can really focus upon, and we can would be more apt for leveraging our products, for example insurance, or maybe a new banking product, savings or a credit card account. So I think what currently in our industry what is happening is there is a lot more analytics happening around the propensity to buy. So all of us are customer, and I'm sure in each bank's list our name is there, but not that every product is offered to us, or for any insurance industry would kind of sell their products to us. Depending on our age, our preferences, etc., I think we are going to we use leveraging analytics, specifically advanced analytics to to find out of the 10 million or 1 million customers, or the prospective clients or the leads who have the most propensity to buy. I think that is very important, because if you are focused on your targeting
Target
segments,
audience, yeah.
I think therefore you are reducing the risk of your revenue, and which is a very very important part of your organization success or your profit and loss, right? So that's that is one thing. And also not only this, there is another analytics which is one is the getting the new customer, which is you working on your leads and finding out who's the best suited. The second one is your existing customers. You can always do a resale of your products, and finding out who has the probability of buying our product the next time or the second time is another type of analytics where we can use to be more pointed, and hence kind of avoiding our risk to our revenue. And 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 on the other side, there are a whole lot of other kind of analysis which is being done on the cost side. How, where are you, what are you spending, and what is being really contributing to the revenue or not, and then coming out with the suggestions or the proposals that these initiatives are not really working, and then maybe we can do away with that. Or but having said that, I think not all strategies work, right? Even despite using the correct targeted segments, or the right set of people to kind of approach for your products. Uh, but again, on the technology disruption, I think you have to think a lot, right? So that is another risk, because the today we don't have time. So how quickly and we can reach out to the person and conclude your product or the sale is very very important. So hence I think some of the technological enhancements in the competitive or the strategic landscape has to be considered well, to be able to execute your plans well. So I think, yeah, that's where broad parameters will be.
So very nicely explained. So if we conclude, we would be mentioning that there are different kind of risks that are faced by an organization. Can be operational risk, can be technological risk, can be in terms of the regulatory framework risk, or the market trends that tend to change, because of which an organization may face a risk. So each organization that wants to have a competitive advantage in the long run would aim at a risk mitigation framework. So all good organizations do have a risk mitigation framework in place. So as Mr. Shyam Lal very nicely explained, that they have a risk mitigation framework in which every 3 months they tend to make an assessment in terms of what changes are taking place, what can be the probable risk that can be there in the organization. Similarly, if I put this across to Parna, so what is the risk mitigation framework which is there in Uno Minda?
So I think we have a very comprehensive risk management program, and what we have done is we have set up a risk management committee at the beginning, and then the committee reviews each and every risk. First of all, we have identified 20 risks at an organization level. We have categorized the risks into two. One is the uncontrollable risks, and second is the controllable risk. Uncontrollable risks are, say for an example, earthquakes or natural calamities
Natural
or
calamities.
COVID, or even you can say geographical or political matters. So which is not in your control. So where whatever you do, the risk will not change. So this is one type of risk. Say for an example, we have a lot of acquisitions and lot of organizations running in Germany. So whether Germany as a country has any political or geopolitical risks or any other kind of risks, like today Ukraine, lot of issues are happening in Ukraine. Another is example is natural risk like earthquake or COVID, whatever happened. So there also you don't have any control. But most of the risks which we identified out of these 20 were controllable risks. Then we defined that if we start working on all the 20, we will lose focus. So we have to prioritize. So we prioritize on 10 top risks. I'll give some of the examples, like you mentioned, technological risks, then supply chain risk. Supply chain is a very big, and I'll give some examples later on in the discussion. And one can be, your industrial relationship risk, like example, your IRPR issues, which are happening with the labor trouble and stuff like that. In many of the states, we still have certain problems in case of labor trouble. Then we have data and information protection risk, cyber security risk. So these kind of risks are, defined as the controllable risks. Now, how we are working? So we have made a detailed framework. So we have done first risk identification, then a risk mitigation plan, or we can say risk treatment plan. Then we have the actual mitigation. Then we see there are two kinds of things. One is something is a permanent fix, but something is can be a temporary fix. So that means I do not have a permanent fix at this point of time, but I have some kind of a temporary fix and then move on and then look for the permanent fix over a
So
longer
go for a
period.
jugaad and then look for a permanent
You can say
solution
something like
in the
that,
Indian
exactly.
context.
But take
Yeah.
some certain countermeasures in there. So we, as we call it CAPA, like corrective action and preventive action. So preventive action may be delayed, but the corrective action is immediately taken. And then finally we do the risk assessment through the risk management committee. So this PDCA cycle we are following across the organization for risk management. And finally we put this to our audit committee and the board members during the board meetings. And then obviously we take some inputs from them and then start working on that. So we are currently working on 10 risks, and then after the 10 risks we have certain mitigation plan and certain mitigation happens, then we start on the next 10 risks. This is how the risk framework happens. And we are also having a chief risk officer who basically does the complete monitoring across the organization. As you know that we have 73 plants. Now 73 plants, so many risks and so many varieties of situations. So to make the framework work better, so we have the domains, like we have 4 domains or 5 domains. Basically in there also we have the domain finance heads who are representing the chief risk officer, and then they collect the information from respective domains and give it to the corporate for the final mitigation. So this is how we work as a risk mitigation across the organization as a group.
In the same context, Shyam Lal ji, how do you go for the risk mitigation in your organization?
Yeah, actually, in our organization, we have identified around 67 risks, and because we are also having a lot of projects almost all along the Himalaya, and most of our main problems are coming from because we are working underground. So many times we get a lot of challenging in the tunneling works. So for that also we have identified several risks, and we use latest technology for investigation of the projects. But even then sometimes we get, so for that we make proper arrangement in our contract system also, and we advise the contract because maximum work we are getting through our contractors. So we built up sufficient uh, uh, sufficient steps for mitigation those risks. Sometimes in Himalayan tunneling works we get water in the tunnels. So how much water is expected? So for that we already make the provision in the contract that if we have this much water, what will be the uh, strategy to handle those issues. Similarly, we have problems in cyber security also. So for that also we have made sufficient arrangement, and we have the detailed system, integrated management system is there, plus we have this IT framework, how we can we have this our intranet, all our locations are connected through the intranet, and this is our own system. So for communication also nobody can enter into our net. So for that all the challenges, all the steps, different steps we have already taken, and we continuously follow them. Technological advancement and the strategy, now, because we are all working in hydro, but now government is we in between, there was some solar plus this wind power. So that time also we took this immediately, that we also entered into the solar and then wind also, and we are working on that. And now as we have this pump storage schemes, so for that also we have already working on that, and we have already obtained a lot of projects on pump storage also. So those things all we are doing, and this technological advancement. So for that we have a very good system of learning. We continuously train our employees. We continuously send our employees to different institutions. Even we had to, if we some international, national level conferences, always we send, and then whatever development has to be taken up, what is in the industry, all those things we are doing. And even for the construction also, like in India, I will give you the example that tunneling through this TBM, tunnel boring machine. So NHPC was the first in the country to have this TBM. This we installed almost in around 90s in one of our project in Dulasti. So whenever there is a challenge, so all those things, even for investigation also, we had some very this one technology is seismic tomography, resistivity imaging. So these are like the CAT scan. Like we have this CAT scan of the body. Similarly, we do the CAT scan of the ground. So these technology also, we were the first in the country to add this. So these also these are the basically risk that uh, uh, technological risk also. So that also we are managing.
So that was a kind of a navigating the risk. So you anticipated that this technological improvement may take place in the industry. So you took a preemptive step, and thereby you were able to become a first mover in launching a innovative technology. In the same context, if I specify that the risks can be navigated. So, Parna talked about certain risks which are controllable, certain risks which are non controllable. So, if there are risks which are non controllable, is it possible for an organization to navigate those risks? Can an organization convert those risks into opportunities? Is it possible? So, let's understand this from Lalit.
Yeah. So I think if I talk about the BFSI, the financial banking or the insurance industry, I think the biggest risk is the financial risk, which is how do you protect your money, right? And that's the one of the foremost thing. Now, among many risks that Sir talked about, operational risk, technology risk, etc. I think the key for the top two that comes to my mind, two, three that comes to my mind is the first one is the credit risk, right? Where when you are actually giving money to your customers, whether it is as a loan or a credit card, so you have to really assess the risk at that point in time. And currently, there are various measures and techniques and in the analytics that you could really identify that which are the customer who are likely not to default, right? because ultimately if the customers will default, your money will be at risk, and therefore it will have an impact on your straight on your P&L. So right at that time, when the credit manager is taking a decision, there are analytics that are done by the companies, the banks, to avoid those defaulters to come in their system at the first point. Similarly, the fraud, which is, and fraud can happen at any place,
Yeah.
which is right at the time of sourcing of any business, while processing your business, while the customer is very much with you, and later on as well. So fraud is something, there are techniques, again, there are through data and lot of through the use of analytics, you can really find out which transactions, kind of transactions, or which are the people who are making those fraudulent transactions are fraud transaction, and hence you could avoid that in a real time scenario where we are actually making payments to through the Paytms or
Paytm
the
and
Google
other.
Pays of the world, right?
Mhm.
Obviously there are a lot of phishing things that are happening, but when meaning there is a traits, there are attributes of fraudsters who are doing frauds on this financial industry, and those traits could be located right at the time of the say whenever the payment is happening or the sale is happening, it can be identified there, and hence you can avoid some of those fraud kind of risk as well. And the other one is, obviously, our regulators are very, very strong these days. We have seen so many banks falling in, and etc. etc. So there are definitely there is a compliance and a conduct kind of a risk, which and the regulatory risk, what you may call it, where it is important for the financial organizations to abide by, and that's to kind of protect the public at large, the customers at large, from being mis-selling practices and those kind of things, right? So I think these are some of the areas where, meaning, I could point out, and I'm sure there are many more, but I think it is important for us to understand, what are the different strategies that a financial organization can apply.
Okay. And if you move ahead, we have to now deliberate upon the opportunity realization as far as NHPC is concerned. Uh, Mr. Shyam Lal talked about the opportunity in terms of innovation of a new technology, coming out with better projects. If we take the auto components industry, and I request Mr. Karna to just delve upon what are the various opportunities that Uno Minda has been looking forward to. How do they identify those opportunities? How they would like to cash on those opportunities?
So, as we have done the SWOT analysis of the organization at a organizational level, so we have also understood the opportunities to mitigate those risks which we talked about earlier in the discussion. So I'll give three, four examples so you will understand what we have done, to mitigate those risks or mitigate those risks permanently in the organization so that this does not reoccur in future. So one of the things I will talk to you about is the COVID time. We had set up a COVID help desk. Along with that, we also had a quarantine center and a kind of a mini hospital. So why it was done, basically, as I told you, we have 29, 30,000 people are working in the organization. So we have set up this hospital and this complete quarantine and the help desk setup in every region. So there was a region in north for the NCR region. There was one in south, one in western side, and one also in Gujarat. I mean, west means Maharashtra and Gujarat. So what we have done is we have encouraged the people who are not getting admission during the COVID times in the hospitals, not getting oxygen cylinders or the medicines or the doctors and stuff like that. So, and who are actually critical cannot be treated at home. So we have brought them to the the COVID center, care centers. We call it triple C, CCC is COVID care center, and then we treated them very well. And leading to that, in spite of the big turmoil during the COVID times, and as you know, we had zero sale for 3 months, April, May, June. There was absolutely zero sale. After that, even the people did not leave us. and we had very, very low attrition in the blue collar level. White collar is a different scenario because of the great resignation and other issues are happening at the macro level in the entire world now, instead of only India. But at the blue collar level, who are more associated with the organization in terms of, who are less paid even, and then they actually are the nerves and hearts and lungs of your organization, who actually manufacture your parts. So we have very, very less attrition and very good engagement we have seen in the blue collar. And the blue collar engagement survey which we had for last 2 3 years is very, very encouraging, and we have given very good response in that. Second example I'll give you is on the supply chain risk. So what we have done during COVID is we have launched a tool called C2FO. The C2FO, what it does is basically it does supply chain financing. So what happens is it basically is a win-win situation. So organization gets immediate cash flow because the bank pays on behalf of the supplier, and bank obviously charges a very small interest rate from the supplier. Supplier also gets the payment immediately. So I'm sorry, not organization. The supplier gets the payment immediately, and in terms of that, we also pay to the bank on a deferred basis. So say for an example, a supplier has a 45 days of credit period, but the bank pays to the supplier on behalf of Uno Minda within 7 days, and it takes a bill discounting from them, and then it passes on to us, and also we get benefited. So it benefits the bank, it benefits the supplier, it benefits the organization. It's like a triple win situation. And through this supply chain financing, the suppliers who are associated with us, especially during COVID and post-COVID, never left us, because they understood that this company tries to build our working capital. They have a good relationship, and also they don't let us down in terms of specifically during the bad times. So this supply chain financing has a really very big impact for the suppliers working capital improvement. On the organizational side, what we have done is we have implemented one more tool called Kairiba. Kairiba is basically doing this cash flow management for the organization. Say for example, we have 73 plants, and one plant has an excess cash flow. Another plant is in need of a cash flow. Instead of going for the cash credit from the banks, what they do is they do sweep in and sweep out. So they sweep in from the unit which has more cash and give it to the other unit which needs cash. So it ultimately it saves a lot of interest rates in terms of borrowing. So this thing we did for the cash flow management and the treasury management, and for the forex also we done the same thing in terms of hedging, and also this was digitized through this Kairiba. So these are the things we have done for the internal financial planning point of view. Another thing is very, very important. If you know, just after COVID, this electronic part shortage has started happening, and you see the vehicles have 6 months, 8 months, 1 year even. Some vehicles have 1 year, waiting period. The reason basically is nothing but the electronic part shortage. And for that, we have made a complete business continuity management plan, 24 to 48 months even, long term and lead time planning in the organization. Multiple sources and electronic, if you know, these components are basically supplied by the distributors, not by the manufacturers directly to you. The manufacturers are very, very big. They are 50, 20 or 15, 20 or even $100 billion companies. So they will never supply you directly any kind of part. So we buy through the distributors. So you have multiple distributor strategy, very good supply relationship management. Most of the parts are imported. So we have a follow-up mechanism through digital routes to find out where the part is right now, because electronic parts go through 7 countries even. It starts from one country, travels 7 countries and get the final manufacturing done, and then it's shipped to India. So it's very complicated. So to cater to this kind of a scenario, we have a very good business continuity management, and we are, even for 48 months we have a visibility now, which part will be received when. And this also helps the OEM and the end customers to understand that when they will be getting the parts shipped to their plants or to their manufacturing facilities, so that they can deliver the vehicles to the customers. Last but not the least, for the IT side, since I am also the group CIO, so I can talk about IT a bit. Even I have not spoken about IT in the whole discussion. So IT, we have done a disaster recovery planning for our SAP and some other applications. So where we have set up a DR site in Bangalore, the primary site is in the NCR region, and this time what we have done is we have even shifted the data center from on campus to off campus. So it is now co-located to another data center. Reason is, nowadays in NCR Especially during the winters, you have the regulation for the gen sets. So diesel generators you are not allowed to start because of the environmental pollution and other things. The pollution control board is always running behind you, and then we have shipped all the data center to outside, and now we are safe because PNG setup even talks about 1.5 to 1.6 crores of investment for one PNG setup in one plant. So even if you see the kind of setup we have, it's a huge capex investment. So these are the few of the risk mitigation plans we have done specifically with respect to the risk management what we have done so far. And there are many other examples which I am not talking at this point of time. So just to reiterate your point on risk management side.
Okay, thank you, Palna. With this, we end with this roundtable on strategy. I thank the eminent experts, Parna, Mr. Shyam Lal, and Lalit for sharing their practical experience with you. We'll be coming back with the next round of strategies in the next few weeks. So stay tuned with IMT CTL. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.